Well, joining us now is IOL Senior Sports reporter Zahier Adams to unpack yet another disappointing ICC event for South Africa. A very good evening and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Thanks for your time once again, Zahier. All South Africans are left actually scratching their heads. How did you feel following this weekend's results?
I think, welcome. Well, just in terms of getting up at 2 a.m. and having to watch that catastrophe, I think everybody on Sunday was fairly disappointed, to say mildly, to put it mildly. But it was really the fact that South Africa were actually just never in the contest. They were beaten on all fronts, whether it was in the field, with the ball, with the bat, and against a side that was ranked the lowest coming into the Super 12 stage. So, yeah, very, very disappointing.
What is actually the problem? They just went with no energy, another inconsistent performance from the South African team. And that's what's really characterized the limited overs team over, I'd say, even the past year.
I think, to be fair to them, we need to differentiate between the T20 side and the one-day side. The one-day side's in real trouble. They now need to qualify for the next World Cup. It's the first time South Africa will have to qualify for the World Cup, and as we see now that the lesser nations do pose a huge threat. So there's no guarantee that they'll get out of the qualifiers in Zimbabwe next year to get to the World Cup in India. That's the 5th year of World Cup. But the T20 side, this side's been growing steadily. They've managed to get players back from Kolpak in terms of Riley, so Wayne Parnell. They've got exciting youngsters in the side. Every block was ticked with this side, and really thought that this side could go all the way, and that's what makes this disappointment even greater. In terms of everybody thought that this was South Africa's chance. They beat India, who are now in the semi-finals and looking prime to get to a final, and it was building towards something special. And then once again, the ability to handle those pressure moments. It was a knock. As Wayne Parnell said before, the game was a virtual quarterfinal. Win it, and they straight through to the semi-finals. There's no duck with Lewis. There's no run rate. There's nothing. Just win the game, and they came up short. So it clearly boils down to them not being able to step up in those big moments, those big pressure moments.
Why is it, though, that we continue talking about a South African cricket team that is unable to show up with big match temperament when it actually matters most?
I think, well, if we had the answer to that, we'd probably have the lottery numbers too. You know, that's where South African cricket is. It's been a perennial problem. It's also got to do, in my opinion, I think South Africa, particularly this team, weren't, they were loath to make the tough choices. There were a few tough choices in selection. There were guys who were sitting on the bench that probably should have played. And South Africa weren't the management of the team. And that's where I think at the moment a lot of the players are getting the blame for obviously that disappointing performance, and they have to put their hands up and be accountable. But also the management in terms of the coaches and the selections, the national selector, the convener selectors, not wanting to make the tough choices and the tough selections that would have helped the side going forward. And because they sat with it and it got bigger and bigger, and it ultimately it just blew up on Sunday.
How much of it do you think has got to do with the fact that Mark Boucher has had a very, very troubled tenure as head coach of the team?
There's no doubt that Mark's tenure has been probably the most dramatic of any Proteas coach since the reintroduction in South Africa's come back in 1992. There were so much things that happened off the field which led to various results on the field. But in my personal opinion, I believe that actually brought this team closer. There was a unifying factor in the side that almost like the world's against us. So we got to pull together and we've got to push forward. But there's no doubt that it's taken a toll on everybody. It's taken a toll on the skipper. It's taken a toll on senior players. It's taken a toll on Boucher himself. And when a coach is under that much pressure all the time, how does he communicate with his players? What messages is he giving across to the group? And that obviously does impact performance.
To be under that kind of pressure, as you said, is never easy. And I think another senior member, really important key member of the South African team that also felt a lot of pressure, although he always puts up a brave face, is the captain, Themba Bavuma.
100%. What Themba's gone through over the last, couple of weeks, a couple of months at least, actually just from the time he started that's just unbearable. I was there in Dubai last year at the previous T20 World Cup where he literally led from the front, particularly also off the field where he was a complete ambassador for the country in handling the Quinton de Kock Negate saga, in terms of there was nobody better that that could have done that, and he earned basically the praise of the entire cricket community, the global cricket community, where international journalists were really impressed with the way he handled the situations, the way he coped, and he was really seen as the leader of the country. But since he's come back from his injury, unfortunately, he hasn't reached those the form that he was able to show previously. And as any captain will tell you, that you get judged on the amount of runs you score and the currency of runs, and he wasn't able to perform at his best since coming back from injury. And that's where I say that Themba Bavuma doesn't pick himself. He doesn't write his own name down on the team sheet beforehand and go out there and toss the coin. That's the job of the selectors and the coaches. And I thought it possibly in the best interest of Themba himself and the team that they probably should have taken him out of the spotlight and said, you know what, Themba, this is all just got too much now, and it's probably best for the side and for yourself if you do sit out. And they weren't prepared to make that call.
Coach Mark Boucher also hinted at a number of players actually leaving the squad. Can you maybe just help us understand that a little bit better and the impact that will have on the Proteas?
I think what he actually said was the fact that it's going to be a challenge for Cricket South Africa going forward to basically contract players for the Proteas. We know South Africa has their own SA20 league next year, and there's all these other leagues around the world that are happening in terms of the IPL, the CPL, the Big Bash, and it becomes much more lucrative for any cricketer to ply his trade outside of South Africa, in fact. And as we've seen with the rugby players and the Springboks are playing overseas in Europe and Japan and all these places, and basically SA Rugby had to change the rules for Rassie to Erasmus to get back those Springboks to launch that World Cup campaign in 2019, and that's something that's possibly going to happen in the same vein with the Proteas. A guy like Quinton de Kock, he's already retired from Test cricket. He's played in so many major tournaments already at the age of 29, and he's going to be somebody that's going to look to maximize his earning potential, and that's playing in the 100, playing in the IPL, and even a youngster like Dewald Brevis coming through with the Titans. He's only 19 years old, but he's already has an IPL contract. He already has a CPL contract, and how South African cricket do manage to keep these type of players, committed to playing for the Proteas. And that's something that Cricket South Africa and the Director of Cricket, Enoch Nepkwe, they are really going to have to discuss going forward.
You speak about Brevis. He himself has said that I'm more than ready and have been more than ready to make that step up to the senior team. Just as we wrap up, Zahier, where to from here for South African cricket and specifically for our T20 team?
I think the launch of the SA20 that's happening in January, I think that's going to be massive for South African cricket on so many different fronts. It's going to be as we saw, a young man like Tristan Stubbs already earning 9.2 million rand. So these are the financial factors that keep players at home. And if SA20 they've managed to sign a television deal with an Indian broadcaster for 10 years, and that plows money into the game, and that allows the players to basically to stay in South Africa. So the SA20 is going to be massive in that aspect, but it's also going to be a huge opportunity for young players, to stake their claim on a global platform against some of the best cricketers in the world, and to me that's going to be the launchpad of hopefully of South African cricket, particularly in the T20 format. There's different conversations to be held around the Test format and the ODI format. We had to miss an ODI series in Australia for the SA20 to happen. But in terms of T20 cricket, I think guys like Devil Brevas, Tristan Stubbs, Marco Jansen, these are hugely talented young cricketers, and they could be the future of South African cricket, and that's the way. And then start with a clean slate and go forward with the T20 side in that manner.
And perhaps even a focus from a national level on perhaps maybe just one format of the game and really ploughing far more resources into that. But so many questions left to answer for Cricket South Africa. Sports journalist Zahier Adams, always a pleasure to have you here on Newzroom Afrika. Thank you so much for your time this evening.